building services contractor, you should be getting paid a prevailing wage. If you think you've been underpaid, call my Bureau of Labor Law at 212-669-4443. All calls will be kept confidential, and we'll fight to get you the money you're owed, regardless of immigration status.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is New York City Cultural Affairs Commissioner Tom Finkelpearl. We're in the process of developing the city's first ever comprehensive cultural plan called Create NYC. This plan has the potential to increase access to arts and culture for all New Yorkers. But we need to hear from you. We believe that performers, students, painters, gardeners, writers, cooks, and so many more together create the soul of our city. How does your community create NYC? Visit createnyc.org to learn more and participate in the process.
This is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. There are over 1 million New York City public school students, and many of these children face a wide range of occupational, speech, developmental, and physical disabilities. Every child deserves an equal and fair education. And if you think your child needs a specialized learning plan or isn't getting the resources he or she needs, please contact your local school, the Department of Education Special Education Hotline at 718-935-2007, or please call 311.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. When we celebrate Thanksgiving with our families, let's remember all New York families. Westside Campaign Against Hunger's Thousand Turkey Challenge, a coalition of schools and religious groups, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, is making sure families in need can also celebrate in their homes. You can find out how to drop off a frozen turkey at wscah.org or contribute a turkey simply by texting turkey to 77948.
This is Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg reminding all New Yorkers about Vision Zero, Mayor Bill de Blasio's bold plan to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries to zero. From building new crosswalks and bike lanes to implementing street improvement projects to working with communities and elected officials, DOT prides itself on making New York City safer for every pedestrian, cyclist, and motorist. So get outside and enjoy your city, but while you do, please drive, bike, and walk carefully. A life may depend on it. To learn more, visit nyc.gov/Vision Zero.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is Cecile Noel, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. If you're a survivor of domestic violence, sex trafficking, or elder abuse, the Mayor's Office is here to help. Walk into one of the city's family justice centers, located in every borough, to receive free and confidential help regardless of income, language, immigration status, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Call 311 and ask for the nearest Family Justice Center or visit nyc.gov/domestic violence.
This is New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. Each day I'm working to make sure every New Yorker has a fair and fighting chance to make it in our city. And I want you to know that my office is here to help. You can call us with questions on any topic, from your pension check to filing a claim against the city. Just reach out to the Community Action Center at 212-669-3916.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hello, this is Michael Carey, Executive Director of Citywide Event Coordination and Management. At CECM, we help oversee the permitting of events on your streets. To find out more about the process and deadline for street activities and pedestrian plazas, please visit nyc.gov/CECM. We look forward to making your event safe and enjoyable for the entire community.
Hello, this is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. Throughout New York City, Rates of heroin and opioid addiction and fatalities are higher than we've ever seen before. Too many families are suffering with this epidemic, but there are resources out there to help. There are life-saving drugs, overdose prevention programs, and many other treatment and support groups. To get more information on all of these programs, please visit nyc.gov or call 311. Thank you.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
Hi, I'm Allison Panisi, Deputy Director for Communications at the New York City Emergency Management Department. Hurricane season is here. Are you prepared? Take the first steps and find out if you live in one of NYC's hurricane evacuation zones. Visit nyc.gov/knowyourzone or call 311 right now. Together, we can be ready.
Hi, I'm Roy Mogolansky, Executive Director for the City of New York Office of Payroll Administration. Did you know city employees can save money on commuting expenses to work? When you sign up for the city's WageWorks Commuter Benefits Program, the funds for your commuting costs are set aside from your paycheck before taxes are taken out. So you pay less in taxes, up to $1,200 a year if you take mass transit, and up to $2,400 a year if parking is part of your commute. Visit getwageworks.com/NYC.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Mayor Bill de Blasio.
And I'm First Lady Shirlane McCrae. From your child's very first steps, you do everything you can to raise them strong and healthy.
And you have a big advantage because your child is growing up NYC, living and learning in a city full of opportunities, including parks, libraries, schools, health services, and more.
And now all of the city's great parenting resources are available online in one place at nyc.gov/growingupnyc.
Hi, I'm New York City Controller Scott Stringer. An honest day's work deserves an honest day's pay. And if you work for a city construction or building services contractor, you should be getting paid a prevailing wage. If you think you've been underpaid, call my Bureau of Labor Law at 212-669-4443. All calls will be kept confidential, and we'll fight to get you the money you're owed, regardless of immigration status.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is New York City Cultural Affairs Commissioner Tom Finkelpearl. We're in the process of developing the city's first ever comprehensive cultural plan called Create NYC. This plan has the potential to increase access to arts and culture for all New Yorkers. But we need to hear from you. We believe that performers, students, painters, gardeners, writers, cooks, and so many more together create the soul of our city. How does your community create NYC? Visit createnyc.org to learn more and participate in the process.
This is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. There are over 1 million New York City public school students, and many of these children face a wide range of occupational, speech, developmental, and physical disabilities. Every child deserves an equal and fair education. And if you think your child needs a specialized learning plan or isn't getting the resources he or she needs, please contact your local school, the Department of Education Special Education Hotline at 718-935-2007, or please call 311.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. When we celebrate Thanksgiving with our families, let's remember all New York families. Westside Campaign Against Hunger's Thousand Turkey Challenge, a coalition of schools and religious groups, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, is making sure families in need can also celebrate in their homes. You can find out how to drop off a frozen turkey at wscah.org or contribute a turkey simply by texting turkey to 77948.
This is Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg reminding all New Yorkers about Vision Zero, Mayor Bill de Blasio's bold plan to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries to zero. From building new crosswalks and bike lanes to implementing street improvement projects to working with communities and elected officials, DOT prides itself on making New York City safer for every pedestrian, cyclist, and motorist. So get outside and enjoy your city, but while you do, please drive, bike, and walk carefully. A life may depend on it. To learn more, visit nyc.gov/Vision Zero.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is Cecile Noel, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. If you're a survivor of domestic violence, sex trafficking, or elder abuse, the Mayor's Office is here to help. Walk into one of the city's family justice centers located in every borough to receive free and confidential help regardless of income, language, immigration status, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Call 311 and ask for the nearest Family Justice Center or visit nyc.gov/domestic violence.
This is New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. Each day I'm working to make sure every New Yorker has a fair and fighting chance to make it in our city. And I want you to know that my office is here to help. You can call us with questions on any topic, from your pension check to filing a claim against the city. Just reach out to the Community Action Center at 212-669-3916.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hello, this is Michael Carey, Executive Director of Citywide Event Coordination and Management. At CECM, we help oversee the permitting of events on your streets. To find out more about the process and deadline for street activities and pedestrian plazas, please visit nyc.gov/CECM. We look forward to making your event safe and enjoyable for the entire community.
Hello, this is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. Throughout New York City, rates of heroin and opioid addiction and fatalities are higher than we've ever seen before. Too many families are suffering with this epidemic, but there are resources out there to help. There are life-saving drugs, overdose prevention programs, and many other treatment and support groups. To get more information on all of these programs, please visit nyc.gov or call 311. Thank you.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
Hi, I'm Allison Panisi, Deputy Director for Communications at the New York City Emergency Management Department. Hurricane season is here. Are you prepared? Take the first steps and find out if you live in one of NYC's hurricane evacuation zones. Visit nyc.gov/knowyourzone or call 311 right now. Together, we can be ready.
Hi, I'm Roy Mogolansky, Executive Director for the City of New York Office of Payroll Administration. Did you know city employees can save money on commuting expenses to work? When you sign up for the city's WageWorks Commuter Benefits Program, the funds for your commuting costs are set aside from your paycheck before taxes are taken out, so you pay less in taxes, up to $1,200 a year if you take mass transit, and up to $2,400 a year if parking is part of your commute. Visit getwageworks.com/NYC.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Mayor Bill de Blasio.
And I'm First Lady Charlene McCrae. From your child's very first steps, you do everything you can to raise them strong and healthy.
And you have a big advantage because your child is growing up NYC, living and learning in a city full of opportunities, including parks, libraries, schools, health services, and more.
And now all of the city's great parenting resources are available online in one place at nyc.gov/growingupnyc.
Hi, I'm New York City Controller Scott Stringer. An honest day's work deserves an honest day's pay. And if you work for a city construction or building services contractor, you should be getting paid a prevailing wage. If you think you've been underpaid, Call my Bureau of Labor Law at 212-669-4443. All calls will be kept confidential, and we'll fight to get you the money you're owed, regardless of immigration status.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is New York City Cultural Affairs Commissioner Tom Finkelpearl. We're in the process of developing the city's first ever comprehensive cultural plan called Create NYC. This plan has the potential to increase access to arts and culture for all New Yorkers. But we need to hear from you. We believe that performers, students, painters, gardeners, writers, cooks, and so many more together create the soul of our city. How does your community create NYC? Visit createnyc.org to learn more and participate in the process.
This is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. There are over 1 million New York City public school students, and many of these children face a wide range of occupational, speech, developmental, and physical disabilities. Every child deserves an equal and fair education. And if you think your child needs a specialized learning plan or isn't getting the resources he or she needs, please contact your local school, the Department of Education Special Education Hotline at 718-935-2007, or please call 311.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer. When we celebrate Thanksgiving with our families, let's remember all New York families. Westside Campaign Against Hunger's 1,000 Turkey Challenge, a coalition of schools and religious groups, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, is making sure families in need can also celebrate in their homes. You can find out how to drop off a frozen turkey at wscah.org or contribute a turkey simply by texting turkey to 77948.
This is Transportation Commissioner Polly Trottenberg reminding all New Yorkers about Vision Zero, Mayor Bill de Blasio's bold plan to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries to zero. From building new crosswalks and bike lanes to implementing street improvement projects to working with communities and elected officials, DOT prides itself on making New York City safer for every pedestrian, cyclist, and motorist. So get outside and enjoy your city, but while you do, please drive, bike, and walk carefully. A life may depend on it. To learn more, visit nyc.gov/Vision Zero.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
This is Cecile Noel, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. If you're a survivor of domestic violence, sex trafficking, or elder abuse, the Mayor's Office is here to help. Walk into one of the city's family justice centers, located in every borough, to receive free and confidential help regardless of income, language, immigration status, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Call 311 and ask for the nearest Family Justice Center or visit nyc.gov/domestic violence.
This is New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer. Each day I'm working to make sure every New Yorker has a fair and fighting chance to make it in our city. And I want you to know that my office is here to help. You can call us with questions on any topic, from your pension check to filing a claim against the city. Just reach out to the Community Action Center at 212-669-3916.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hello, this is Michael Carey, Executive Director of Citywide Event Coordination and Management. At CECM, we help oversee the permitting of events on your streets. To find out more about the process and deadline for street activities and pedestrian plazas, please visit nyc.gov/CECM. We look forward to making your event safe and enjoyable for the entire community.
Hello, this is New York City Public Advocate Letitia James. Throughout New York City, rates of heroin and opioid addiction and fatalities are higher than we've ever seen before. Too many families are suffering with this epidemic, but there are resources out there to help. There are life-saving drugs, overdose prevention programs, and many other treatment and support groups. To get more information on all of these programs, please visit nyc.gov or call 311. Thank you.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services, dial 311.
Everybody in? Steve, we're good? Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We've had many productive ongoing discussions with the Secret Service regarding how we'll be assisting them in protecting the President-elect and his family when they're here in New York City. We've been planning this with an eye towards how we keep New Yorkers safe and to minimize disruptions to all other New Yorkers, tourists, public transportation, and those who need to make commercial deliveries in the area surrounding Fifth Avenue. We're striving for the proper balance here, and it will be a fluid plan that changes as circumstances dictate. Understand, we're not going to detail the Secret Service's plan to protect the President-elect. Today, we're here to talk about how the NYPD plans to maintain traffic flow in a way that will be safe and efficient for everyone. I know that many people who live and work in the area around 56th and 57th Street have a lot of questions about all this. For the first time in decades, our country will have a New York City resident as President of the United States. The transition will be ongoing through January, of course. And much of this transition work will occur in the President-elect's offices in Midtown Manhattan. The plan we're discussing today covers that transition period. That's about the next 65 days. Firstly, we're not closing Fifth Avenue on any kind of permanent basis. It was closed for brief periods of time since Election Day to improve security with concrete barriers and due to large demonstrations. But again, no wholesale closures of Fifth Avenue are planned. Trump Tower, as you know, is located at East 56th Street and Fifth Avenue, just one block south of one of the busiest intersections in New York City and possibly in the nation. What you're seeing in that area now, in terms of our new security management, is what we expect will remain in place through the inauguration. In many respects, this is no different than the many major events the NYPD secures each and every day. In terms of security, there will be many things the public will see and many things the public will not see. We'll have our explosive detection canines, our specialized units, like the Critical Response Command and the Strategic Response Group, as well as plainclothes officers and counter-surveillance teams working hand-in-hand with our Intelligence Bureau and our partners in the federal government, specifically the Secret Service. Again, none of this is new for us. And again, as we always do, we'll constantly reassess this plan and make any adjustments we deem necessary to ensure that we maintain the proper balance of security and everyday life in our great city. Now I'd like to introduce Mayor Bill de Blasio to make some remarks. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. First of all, everyone, I want to thank Commissioner O'Neill, all the men and women of the NYPD who are doing an extraordinary job. They turned on a dime on election night, having done a lot of preparation with our partners in the Secret Service, and they put together an extraordinary security plan that's been operating very, very well. I want to thank you, Commissioner, and all of those good people who have been doing this work. And when President-elect Trump and I met, one of the things that he said was he expressed his admiration and appreciation for the men and women of the NYPD who are doing this work, and I shared with him my same feelings on the matter. The details you'll hear from in a moment. You'll hear from U.S. Secret Service Special Agent in charge for the New York office, David Beach, and you'll hear from our Chief of Department, Carlos Gomez, on specifics, but I want to give you a couple of broad points. I also want to thank our First Deputy Commissioner, Ben Tucker, our Deputy Commissioner for Counterintelligence and Anti-Terrorism Efforts, John Miller, and our Commissioner of Transportation, Polly Trottenberg, who's been deeply involved in the efforts to make sure things keep moving in Midtown Manhattan. Also want to thank Councilmember Dan Garodnick, who represents that area in the City Council. Look, we are devoted to making sure this city will keep moving. This is a big challenge and an unprecedented challenge. We know that. But we are committed to making it work. We need the city to keep moving at all times. We're entering the holiday season, which adds a layer of complication. But the NYPD, working with all other partner agencies in the city government and with our federal partners, will continue to refine the approach to make sure it maximally allows for people to move freely through the area. We understand the number one imperative here is safety and security. We owe that to the President-elect, his family, and his team, and that is important for all New Yorkers. So that will be the most important consideration. But we believe we can balance that with a number of measures to keep traffic, both pedestrian and vehicular traffic, moving as well as possible. Now, New York City has a long history of dealing with extraordinary events, none more so than just over a year ago when we had Pope Francis and over 150 world leaders and the President of the United States all in town in the same days. The NYPD did an extraordinary job working with our federal partners in that time, keeping everything moving and keeping everyone safe. So this extraordinary department is no stranger to these challenges, and it is a known fact that Presidents of the United States, including, of course, President Obama, have come into New York City on a regular basis throughout their presidencies, and there are very refined approaches to handling those visits. So the NYPD is particularly well suited to take on this challenge. But it is an unprecedented challenge. In the modern world with the security dynamics we face today, we have never had a situation where a President of the United States would be here on such a regular basis. Although, again, the details of his future plans are unknown, but we certainly know over these next 65 days he will be here very regularly. We've never had that situation before, and certainly not with the focal point location being in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. But the NYPD is up to the challenge, and the City of New York is up to the challenge. I have no doubt about that. We have an excellent working relationship with the Secret Service. There has been a clear set of shared goals and clear coordination throughout this time. And we believe that is going to be one of the #1 reasons why we can keep people safe and secure. At the same time, we will listen carefully to the needs of New Yorkers and the concerns of New Yorkers throughout this process. Obviously, for people who work in the area, for businesses in the area, for people who drive through, for people who go there for a variety of reasons, there are real concerns right now. We're going to do our best regularly to address those concerns and to make the adjustments that we can, always in the context of protecting safety and security first. Now, I want to emphasize, when we get toward the holidays, there's constant messages given, and Commissioner Trottenberg reminded me of this earlier. We constantly remind our fellow New Yorkers during the holidays to not bring cars into Midtown Manhattan unless you absolutely have to please rely to the maximum extent possible on mass transit options. I want to reiterate that. That would be true during any holiday season. It's even more true now, of course. One of the things that people need to recognize for their own good and for everyone else's good is, to the extent you can avoid the immediate area around Trump Tower, that will make your own life easier and everyone else's life easier. That area, that specific area, and I want to delineate in this case from 53rd Street to 57th Street and from Madison Avenue to 6th Avenue. In the scheme of our city, even in the scheme of the borough of Manhattan, that's a pretty small area. If people were to specifically avoid that area to the maximum extent possible, that's going to help us to manage the situation as well as we can. As I said, we'll continue to refine the approach to traffic management and to addressing the needs of people who work and live in the area. We will add personnel as needed. Right now, since Election Day, NYPD has already put on each shift during daytime hours almost 50 officers between traffic agents and police officers to manage the flow of traffic in that immediate area. In those blocks I delineated and surrounding blocks, an additional 50 personnel put in place on the daytime shifts. We will add personnel if needed to address the situation further. I also want to note that enforcement will be more aggressive on 5th Avenue, particularly enforcement of truck traffic. You'll see a very, very clear uptick on enforcement of truck traffic on 5th Avenue, because there's already very clear rules and restrictions related to truck traffic, commercial traffic on 5th Avenue that will be enforced more vigorously than ever. Finally, want to note, before offering a couple of words in Spanish, I want to note that this is a very substantial undertaking. It will take substantial resources, and we will begin the conversation with the federal government shortly on reimbursement for the NYPD for some of the costs that we are incurring. We are particularly concerned about overtime costs, and we think it's a very valid situation to turn to the federal government for the maximum possible reimbursement for those costs. Again, a situation that this city has never been faced with before. We believe the federal government will understand that situation and be willing to help, but those conversations will begin in earnest soon. Just a few words in Spanish. La policía está trabajando con el servicio secreto para asegurar que la Quinta Avenida siga abierta. Debemos garantizar el flujo del tránsito en Midtown, pero también la seguridad del presidente electo y su equipo. With that, I want to bring forward a man who's been already a great partner in this work. I want to thank him and all his colleagues for that, the Special Agent in Charge of the New York office for the Secret Service, David Beach.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to begin by thanking the Mayor and Commissioner O'Neill and the men and women of the New York City Police Department, not just for their efforts over the last week and a half, not for their efforts on election night, but their efforts over the last year enduring a very, very difficult and challenging time in partnership with the Secret Service, protecting two major presidential nominees. So on behalf of the Secret Service, I'd like to thank you both for opening the resources of the city and the New York City Police Department to us, and thank you for your partnership. Regarding the President-elect's residence and security planning in general for the Secret Service. The planning and execution of security at Secret Service protected venues in New York City is a collaborative effort between the Secret Service, the New York City Police Department, and of course the New York Mayor's office. The security plan is collectively developed by the partners based on factors unique to each and every venue. The Secret Service and its law enforcement partners constantly monitor, review, and adjust the plan as needed based on information and operational needs. One element in determining any venue's security plan is its impact on the local residents and merchants, as well as its impact on the daily operations of the community at large. In order to fully consider this element and make the best decisions possible, the Secret Service works with its law enforcement partners, in this case the New York City Police Department, to communicate with the community to better understand their needs and their concerns. In every instance possible, the Secret Service attempts to minimize any adverse or unnecessary impact on the community as a result of these security plans. Notwithstanding, the Secret Service, in conjunction with the New York City Police Department, is committed to providing the highest level of security and fulfillment of our no-fail mission of national security and public safety. As a matter of practice, security plans will evolve in order to address emerging threats and to improve efficiencies in its operations. Whenever possible, the Secret Service will communicate these changes to community members without compromising operational security. Specific security measures, activities, timing, number of personnel, and resources are not discussed outside of the law enforcement community. The long-term success of security planning in New York City is directly attributable to the long-standing, strong partnership between the Secret Service and the New York City Police Department. Finally, I would just like to add that throughout my career, I've traveled all over the world. I can think of no city better equipped, better prepared to deal with this challenge than New York, partly because of the strength of the police department, but more importantly because of the strength and resiliency of the citizens of New York City. So I would like to thank everybody for their patience in enduring this challenge.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much. We look forward to the continued partnership. I'd like to introduce from DOT Commissioner Polly Trottenberg. Polly? All right, I got the order out of place. Now I'd like to introduce Chief of Department Carlos Gomez.
Good afternoon, everyone. The NYPD has worked very closely with the U.S. Secret Service in developing this plan, and I'd like to personally thank Dave and his agency for their collaboration with us. We look to strike a proper balance between presidential security, providing as much security as possible around the president-elect, his family, other residents of Trump Tower, and businesses in the area, while at the same time not having an adverse impact on traffic, transportation, deliveries, and the lives of other New Yorkers that walk by the area and certainly live nearby. This is the plan that is presently implemented since last week, whether the president-elect is in his residence or not. A plan going forward for when the president-elect is out of residence is being discussed and evaluated as to the appropriate level of resources and staffing levels. We have committed a substantial number of resources to Trump Tower, a real substantial number, 24 hours a day, around the clock. Uniform officers will be assigned to security posts around the perimeter of the property. Officers will be assigned to assist Secret Service personnel at screening and checkpoint locations along Fifth Avenue in front of the entrance to Trump Tower. Officers will be assigned to intersection control, will be assigned as blocker vehicles. They will also man the Delta barriers that have been placed on 56th Street between Fifth Avenue and Madison to control vehicular access. We will also have officers assigned on observation posts at elevated positions and on rooftops. And certainly we will have a good number of personnel available to address any demonstrations that pop up. And over the last 9 or 10 days now, we've had 6 such demonstrations occur right in front of Trump Tower. In addition to those resources, we will have resources from our Counterterrorism Bureau in the form of heavy weapons teams from the Critical Response Group. We will have dogs there, explosive detecting canines, as well as other officers from the Counterterrorism Bureau equipped with radiation pages, as well as other devices. We'll be enforcing the truck restrictions that are already in place. We took a strong look at that, and we really mean it. We're going to start enforcing this right away. And I'd like to announce the following restrictions. Those truck restrictions are southbound on Fifth Avenue between 60th Street to 55th Street, and eastbound on 56th Street from 6th Avenue to 5th Avenue. Truck traffic will be diverted away from these streets. And certainly, one of the toughest jobs in this department is the job of a traffic enforcement officer, traffic agent, and we have a substantial number of those resources also assigned to this area to assist with congestion as well as enforcing the truck restrictions. 56th Street will be closed for all vehicular traffic between Fifth Avenue and Madison Avenue. This is where we place those Delta barriers to control access to vehicles. However, pedestrians that reside in the area, that work on the street, want to shop on the street, or simply want to cross 56th Street down to Madison or up to 5th, they will be allowed to do so on the south side of 56th Street, but after being screened by us and the Secret Service. Buses, passenger vehicles will continue to utilize Fifth Avenue, but understand that presently 2 out of the 5 traffic lanes are being restricted due to barriers that we have in place. We've also have dedicated plans to implement when we have demonstrations at Trump Plaza. We've identified locations that are within sight and sound of the entrance to Trump Tower, and we establish protest areas at these locations. Small groups of protesters will be allowed to obviously be on the sidewalk so that traffic will not be impeded on Fifth Avenue. However, when there's larger numbers of protesters, we may have to shut down traffic on Fifth Avenue. And we saw that occur last Saturday when we had over 20,000 protesters in front of Trump Tower. So far, we've closed Fifth Avenue on 3 occasions in the last 10 days due to demonstrations. And certainly when this occurs, we bring in more police sources from other parts of the city to assist us. And we close Fifth Avenue for safety concerns, the safety of the demonstrators as well as the safety of motorists. And the field commander at the scene makes that call. I made the call last week, and we will always choose safety over convenience. Once again, this is the security plan that we presently have in place. We are doing this for over a week now, and operationally every day it is getting more fluid. We're working more efficiently. We will work closely with the Secret Service, and certainly we could modify this plan as situations change. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Carlos. And now for the second time, I'd like to introduce the Commissioner of Transportation, Polly Trottenberg. Polly.
You've got the step for me. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Look, as you've heard today, obviously security will be the priority for this area, but at New York City DOT, we will be working hand in hand with NYPD to do everything we can to help ease travel conditions. It's an extraordinary pedestrian area. Pedestrian volumes on Fifth Avenue are some of the highest in probably in the Western world, and we're going to see everything we can do to help ease their movement along the sidewalks. It's an extraordinary bus corridor. There are 140 buses in the morning peak that run along Fifth Avenue. We'll be working obviously closely with PD to keep them moving as well as to keep other vehicles moving. And I'll just reiterate, I think, what the mayor said, which is we would say this anyways during holiday times, but to the extent that you can come to this area by mass transit or by foot, obviously that will help us. Thank you.
Given the fact that you've been doing it for a week, but this can go up to 4 years or even 8 years, are you considering creating a special command that works in kind of a presidential detail, understanding that they're still in charge of the security of the president, but will you have a different command that is just unified?
Yeah, that's not having a separate command. That's not off the table. That's the long-range plan. Right now, we're talking about the transition period for the next 65 days. So we're still working on a long-range plan for once President-elect Trump is inaugurated. So we're working with the Secret Service on that plan. In the back.
As we know, Mr. Trump is very busy these days, but I wonder if by any chance he expressed interest in attending the Macy's parade. And regardless of that almost impossible scenario, what are the security plans?
For the Thanksgiving Day parade? All right. Why don't we cover that after we talk about Trump? And he hasn't expressed his desire to come to the Thanksgiving Day to me personally yet. So, Marcia.
I'm wondering, first of all, what your message is going to be to the businesses who've been inconvenienced, but also a lot of them have expressed concerns about what's going to happen if Con Ed needs a permit or a utility needs a permit in order to do something, or if somebody wants to build something, or somebody, like for example, a restaurateur said he needs to have his ducts cleaned and they have to go on the roof and they're not allowed to do it because there's a concern about snipers and things like that. So how will all these issues be solved, and will people go to DOT, to the LAPD, to the Secret Service? How will that be dealt with?
All right, so I think Polly's going to talk about the permits for construction, but as far as the businesses and residents in and around Trump Tower, rest assured that the NYPD is doing their best to facilitate movement within that zone. Chief Bill Morris, the chief of Manhattan South, has been working on this plan, and it's getting better each and every day. And we're working in conjunction with the retailers and the restaurants to make sure that they get the customers in as easily as possible.
Yeah, just before Polly comes up, just to say, Marcia, that look, we want any business that needs to do work with, for example, our Department of Buildings, our Department of Transportation, or the utilities, to continue doing the normal procedure they would do, but the NYPD and Secret Service will obviously be providing oversight on all of it. So the important point is the safety and security situations will be baked in here. We will make sure that anything is done in a way that ensures safety. But they should rest assured that if something, for example, as you say, whether you need access to the rooftop, and that is the normal thing that would happen, we'll arrange that in the right time, in the right manner, with the oversight of our security leadership.
Trying to tell businesses that you're concerned about them and you want to make sure.
Yes.
They're going to be able
Marcia, we are very concerned to make sure that businesses continue to thrive, they continue to be able to serve their customers and stay in business and do well. We all understand there'll be disruption in the short term. But one thing I can say for sure, that the scenario you gave, what if someone needs access to a part of the building and there's a security consideration, we will make sure that security consideration is handled so that business can go on as usual and that our other sister city agencies can do their job. Polly, you want to speak about the construction permits?
I think, Mr. Mayor, you put it well. And we have, again, in New York City, we have protocols for how we do permitting in high security areas like World Trade Center and New York Stock Exchange. We do coordinate closely with PD and in some cases the Secret Service. And just to send the message, we understand we're going to need to work closely with businesses in this area, as we do in Lower Manhattan, to help them through permitting issues and try and make the situation, make it minimize the inconvenience if we can on the permitting front.
back on construction permits in that area because of safety reasons?
We're going to take a look at how we handle construction permits, and actually today we've started what we call our holiday embargo, which limits construction permits in the Midtown area between now and January 2nd. And I think we're going to take some of that time to figure out what the future protocols will be. But we are going to be sensitive to trying to work with businesses. Con Ed and all the utilities, et cetera.
Is Trump Tower now seen as a possible terrorist target, given the fact that the president-elect is in there?
Hey, Rich, this is why we're doing all this. to make sure that we have the necessary protection for not only Trump Tower and Mr. Trump, but for all New Yorkers that are in and around that area. So of course it is. Yes.
What's involved in the screening of pedestrians on 56th?
It's going to be a bag check. It's make sure that the people, as they move through 56th Street and down Fifth Avenue on the east side of the street, that we offer the maximum amount of protection to the people that reside there and work there. So we're going to be doing a bag check there. In the back.
Commissioner, just to follow up on Rich a bit, any building that bears the Trump name, doesn't that then become a target, if not for terrorism, for at least vandalism or crime? And is that you guys, or is that incumbent upon the Trump organization? And then, if I may,
stay on that. We'll come back to you for a second. Okay. Answer that
Sure.
first.
And that's working in partnership with private security, as we always do. And that's why we built up our counterterrorism assets over the last 33 months. Now we have the Critical Response Command and Strategic Response Group, and we move them around as necessary.
And then, without giving away any planning, has the president-elect indicated whether New York City would be his sort of home away from the White House, or whether it would be Florida, New Jersey?
I can certainly say, in my conversation, no, and I think that that's something that remains to be seen. And I don't think we should prejudge that. I think the president-elect has to get into office and have the experience of being in the White House and make the decision that's right for him and his family. I think right now, I think Commissioner said very clearly, we have a 65-day period that we know with some assurance will be a time when the president-elect is focused primarily on New York City, will provide the protection during that time frame. When he goes into office, it'll be a chance to reset and see what his decisions are about where he'll put his time. Again, I think it's one thing I really believe strongly, where he is going to be leading this nation. He needs to succeed for all of us, and he has to determine what works for him.
That, Mayor? Yeah, sure. Is that, just to be clear, is anything going to change after the 20th of January?
Again, I think it's a self-evident question, my friend. A lot could change after the 20th of January when someone actually when the president-elect takes on the role of President of the United States and has that responsibility. The need to be in Washington and deal with situations that can only be handled from the White House, I think, will become quite frequent. But it's not right to prejudge. I would urge everyone to think about the next 65 days that we know something about and not try and guess about what comes thereafter.
Got to go down all the way to the right. Go. Dave.
The White House has had its own issues with intruders, fence jumpers, armed men in the East Room. What have you learned from protecting the White House that you can explain in general terms to be applied here at Trump Tower? Place is a shopping mall beside the president.
Well, I'm not going to comment on the first part of that. What I will tell you is we learn each and every time we implement a security plan, and we take those best practices and apply them to future plans. As we noted earlier, both the Commissioner and I have noted that we have a long-standing partnership and a very successful record here in New York City in protecting venues and people. So we're very comfortable with our plan.
I just moved down the line here.
Commissioner O'Neill, has there been any additional support for personnel for Trump's children due to the fact they've had such a high-profile position throughout the campaign?
I'd leave that up to Dave to answer that question. Talking about President-elect Trump's family.
Again, we're not going to comment on specifics of what we're doing, but as family members of the President-elect, they are entitled to some security.
I'm going to move down the line here. Not David, not you. No, right here. Right, you. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. I'm Laura. Hi, Laura.
Can you tell us how much, or give us an estimate of what those NYPD overtime costs are going to be? And have you gotten any assurance from the federal government that they will reimburse you? Would that be the Obama administration or the Trump administration reimburse you?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not going to go into the actual cost, but we are in conversation about reimbursement. And that's an important point for us, because we are going to be using substantial resources here to keep the president-elect safe and the area safe. So we're in conversation with the federal government on that.
On the second part of the question, the answer is both. We are beginning the conversation now in the Obama administration, and it will continue throughout the Trump administration, which is something we have dealt with in the past. It's not a new topic. When the NYPD provides protection for world leaders, protection for the President of the United States, there are situations that have been reimbursable in the past. We pursue that reimbursement. The difference now, Laura, is this is a situation we've never seen before. So we're going to have to establish a new set of ground rules. But that conversation is starting now and will continue, obviously, going forward. Yeah, I won't speak for the Secret Service. I'll state the obvious. I don't think that's the way these things work, and I don't think it's the way they should work. He's the President-elect of the United States of America. He has to make a decision of what will work for him. And it's our job to work with that. He's from here. This is where he knows how to do his work. We have to respect that fact.
Just to kind of follow up on that, Mayor, can you give us a sense of some of the previous times where there was reimbursement, or a sense of how much the city was reimbursed? And did this issue come up in your conversations with the President-elect this week about his security or securing him when he's in New York City?
Just there have been times in the past that we have been reimbursed. I'm not going to go into when and what time that was, but there has been reimbursement, and it's something that it's important for us this time that we go to the federal government, considering again, this substantial number of resources that we're using. And we have had an increase in the force over the last couple of years, which is important, which helps us with this challenge, but we want to continue to make sure that we build all of the programs in the NYPD. So it's important that we continue to work on getting that reimbursement.
Yeah, let me just add, I think we have a very, very strong case for reimbursement, very substantial reimbursement. Again, because I'm not an expert on the chapter and verse, but we know for a fact, whether it was protecting foreign leaders or protecting the President of the United States, there has been a history of reimbursement under certain situations. This makes all of them look quite small, obviously. So I think there will be an openness and a willingness, and we'll have to create a new paradigm for what that looks like. I will certainly be talking to senior members of the Obama administration about that. That'll continue, as I said, into the Trump administration. I did not raise the specific issue to the President-elect, but I'm sure in a subsequent conversation there will be an opportunity to do that, and I'll certainly be talking to members of his team about it in the meantime.
David?
Are you concerned, Mr. Mayor, at all? This is a man who's in his business had a history of not fully reimbursing contractors.
This is... David, this is public service. This is a whole new reality. This is the federal government of the United States. And again, there is a history of providing reimbursement to New York City. But now New York City is being asked to do something on a scale that's never been done before. Certainly, there's no precedent for this in the context of New York City history. I don't know if I can think of any other situation with any other president in any other city that something of this complexity and intensity happened before. So I think this rises above partisanship. I think this is a situation where it will be recognized in the federal government that the NYPD is carrying a burden for the entire nation, and I am hopeful there will be receptivity to proper reimbursement, particularly for the overtime costs we need.
Commissioner, perhaps Station Beach, is there going to be any thought given to retrofitting that Trump Tower facade, which is uniquely glass, make it glass-proof, or changing the first 10 stories of the structure to guard against blast?
The security plan for Trump Tower is what it is right now. We will continue to evaluate it and modify it as necessary and as appropriate. Any changes to the building would really we would need to confer with the building management, obviously, the city, and others. But at this time, we're comfortable with our plan.
Follow up. Sorry, are you prepared to have basically two White Houses, one in Washington and one in New York City?
Every president, every sitting president, and every former president is allowed to declare one residence outside of the White House. So we do this with every sitting president.
Special Agent Beach, what is your plan for future demonstrations? If future demonstrations occur, what will be your response to that?
I think that's more of a question for the NYPD. We will have the appropriate amount of resources available to deploy as the demonstrations pop up.
Tower closed to the public, no luxury shoppers go to Trump Tower. But you just want to check out the for protests there.
We are working with the businesses and with Trump Tower to make sure that people that need access or want access to that area are able to go through that. But again, there's going to be a check before you get to be able to access those areas. Hold on 1 second. Just, yeah.
Will major events coming up, like Thanksgiving parade, affect the number of security personnel stationed at the tower?
Thanksgiving Day Parade, we have a great plan in place, and we're probably going to talk about that off topic. Assistant Chief Rodney Harrison is going to speak about that. Will this impact that? Again, both plans will be in place. So
Two more on this one, please, and we'll move
right.
on.
Just to go off of that other question, technically Trump Tower is a public plaza. People have always been able to access it. It was part of the deal to construct it back in the day. So are you saying that if you just want to go into Trump Tower, sit down and have a cup of coffee, you can't do that anymore?
No, I didn't say that. I said that people will be allowed access into that building, but there'll be a screening area to get in there. Yeah. Hold on, Dean, I got to go to the left side here.
Very good. I mean, you said for folks to understand, but New Yorkers at some point are not going to understand when they are trapped in traffic every day. What's your, sincere message to New Yorkers who may be stuck every morning trying to get to work or to home, and after 3 weeks, 65 days is just too much for them to bear, and they're really upset.
Listen, Dean, you've been in the city for a long time, as I have. New Yorkers are the most resilient people on the planet. And if 5, 7, and 5 doesn't work, there's other avenues that I'm sure they'll find. Without a doubt, I have no doubt about that. It's going to cause some inconvenience at first, but as New Yorkers, we learn. We learn to work around things. And there are large-scale events in this city every day that we work around every day.
Okay, the last two here, right here.
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, have you been inundated by complaints, or are New Yorkers just taking this in stride? All of this traffic and all of this mess there. I mean, are you hearing from them, or are they just kind of going, well, whatever?
There'll be a two-part answer here. I'm not sure if I'm going to call them complaints. Not yet, because it's only been 10 days, but concerns, absolutely concerns, and we're working to address those concerns. That's our job as a police department, to be responsive to the people who have complaints or concerns.
Yeah, just to finish, I've heard plenty of concerns, but at the same time, I've heard that resiliency. And I want to thank Special Agent Beach for the tribute he paid to New York City by saying, we are uniquely able to deal with something like this. I'm very proud of New Yorkers and how they deal with all of the challenges we face because we're the greatest city in the world. We are used to handling situations that other places couldn't even imagine. Papal visit and the UN General Assembly, all the things that we have handled is a point of pride for New Yorkers. So I think New Yorkers, after we get through legitimately grumbling, we will then go on with our lives. By the way, again, I have felt at the holidays every year I've heard a lot of concern about how tough it is in Midtown. People adjust and they do the best they can. But I want to emphasize finally, we're going to keep working on the congestion issue. It's not a fixed situation. We're going to keep working with all of our partners to try and improve that situation on a regular basis. It would help, of course, if anyone who does not need to drive in that area avoids that immediate area around Trump Tower. And then after the 65 days is over, we'll see a different reality. By definition, the president will be in Washington a lot of the time. That will ease up the situation a bit in some ways.
Ozzy, last up.
You've encouraged people to take mass transit rather than to drive. Has there been any talk about increasing security at the nearby subway stations? Have you conferred with the MTA or state officials about possibly additional security measures in there?
And this is something that Joe Fox does every day. He reevaluates the need to deploy personnel. So as traffic increases, pedestrian traffic increases at certain stages, he deploys people there.
Okay, thank you, folks. Now we're going to allow our guests to leave. Thank you.
We're going to do other police now.
And then we'll move over to other police
Take care.
topics. So,
Right.
thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for everything. Appreciate it.
Polly?
Yeah, sure.
Folks, okay, we want to
regroup here, and then we're going to start off now with any other police-related topics, and then when that's done, we can move on, okay?
We're going to start off with a quick review of what we're doing for Thanksgiving, and we'll get into more detail next week. So, Assistant Chief Rodney Harrison.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For the 90th annual Thanksgiving Day Parade, it's pretty much going to be the same situation, a couple of adjustments that we're looking to put in place. There's going to be no vehicular traffic on 42nd and 57th Street this year. We're going to have more sand trucks as well as blocker cars assisting and helping the route. We're going to have extra officers also involved on the rooftops on the route, as well as officers utilizing or having their long guns. We're also going to put more officers on the outskirts just to make sure if any emergency jobs come over, they're able to handle the jobs. So that's what we have currently at this time, but pretty much we're looking to have a very, very good event. Just to make sure that everything is running smoothly. Unfortunately, in this day and age, you never know what may come up, so we just want to make sure that everyone's able to enjoy the event like usual.
Some of this is, some of this isn't. From year to year with this parade, we have employed blocker cars increasingly as the terrorist threat has morphed globally. Because of that specific threat this year, what you're going to see is an awful lot more sand trucks in place of blocker cars. That gives us an advantage in a couple of ways, which is a sand truck is longer than a blocker car, so we can use fewer of them and cover more ground. And secondly, you're not going to move it if you hit it with something. So we've increased along those lines, but you're also going to see some of the things you've seen in the past in terms of mobile radiation detection trucks are part of the regular package. Radiation field team.
Any other questions to ask Mr. Vance's office about where the case goes from here? We've delivered a very strong investigation to him.
Any word on motive?
We believe it was a fight between the individuals up there. That's what our sense is with some of the people we have talked to already. You have to understand these individuals were up all night. They came home from a club down the meatpacking district, and it was going on for quite some time. So that's our indication right now, an argument between these males. Not going to say. Don't know. Not exactly sure, so I don't want to say it. Both individuals were uncooperative, so it's hard to get to the true story on that.
Courtney.
Predecessor, Commissioner Bratton, was very outspoken and vocal when Trump started talking about stop and frisk for policies that he certainly didn't agree with. Now that it is happening and Trump will be taking office in January 21st, what will the target stance be, or how would you react to the federal government all of a sudden telling you, okay, now you need to amp up stop and frisk, and ICE is going to tell you to start rounding up people and deporting them?
As far as stop and frisk, and I've spoken about this quite a number of times, that's a constitutionally tested tool used by police departments across the United States. The level that we're using it now is much lower than it has been in previous years, and it still proves effective for us. It's a necessary tool for police officers to use to keep the people of this great city safe. So we're still using it now, just not at the same levels that we have in the past. And as far as ICE, we do not look for people based on their immigration status. We are a law enforcement agency, and we're looking at criminal law in New York State. So, Shimon?
Working you have done to build a better relationship with them in the last few years. Are you concerned with some of the choices that Trump is making, that's going to hurt your relationship with sort of
Shimon, community relations is an ongoing process for us, and we're going to continue to improve those relations that we've established in the past, and we're going to make sure that everybody in New York understands that the New York City Police Department is here for everybody in New York City, not just certain select groups.
concern from that? There's all sorts of stuff said about
Yeah, Shimon, I'm not going to speculate about that, but I will tell you that every day it's not myself, it's Carlos Gomez, it's Chief Monahan, and all the precinct commanders, and all the people that are involved in neighborhood policing, the NCOs, the sector cops. This is what we do every day. So we have to make sure that we continue to do that and improve on that and improve community relations.
Let me just jump in. On this point, I've heard a lot of gratitude from members of the Muslim community in this city for the support they get from the NYPD. As I've mentioned, there are 900 members of the NYPD who are Muslim American who serve us all. But there's a tremendous understanding in the community that the NYPD is there to protect them, and that more and more effort has been made to communicate and work with the community and listen to the community. So that will continue unabated. I think it's absolutely important that the new administration in Washington not follow through with any policy that would suggest discrimination against Muslims. I think it will be not only against our Constitution and our values, but it will be counterproductive. And it will create a rift after so much work has been done to try and create closeness and unity. But I do want to emphasize that there's real sense of appreciation in the community for the way the NYPD is providing support and protection, and particularly response to anything that might be a hate incident.
For John, do you want to step forward and say anything to the president-elect? He's invoked the NYPD's past practices of reportedly putting undercover officers in mosques and said it was a good idea. He criticized the decision earlier to pull that type of operation back. Do you want to say anything to him?
The only thing I would say about that is most of his characterization, as well as most of the characterizations about what that activity was and what that activity wasn't, were actually inaccurate. So to respond to things that were kind of summed up in bumper sticker terms wouldn't be productive. We operate under the handshoe guidelines. We operate under legal guidance from Deputy Commissioner Burns' team. We lay every case out on paper, and we follow those practices assiduously in tremendous detail with great fealty. So I don't think we're going to be changing much of what we do because we work very hard at doing it right.
And just to emphasize, we get to make that decision. This is, again, the nature of the American Constitution. There's not a federal police force. There's a police force in New York City known as the NYPD. We will make the decision on how is best to protect our own people, and we are not going back to that surveillance program. It did not work, and it alienated members of the Muslim community from the NYPD and from the government of New York City.
There is the JTTF, and then also partnerships between federal law enforcement and the NYPD don't happen in a vacuum. When federal law enforcement starts going under mandates by Trump presidency of profiling or deporting, what are you prepared to say to your partners, either way, when they have to enforce what the White House is saying? Again,
I think there's an overestimation so far about how a federal government can compel local authorities. I think there's plenty of examples under our constitutional law of limitations on that. I think in terms of JTTF, that's a fantastically strong relationship right now. I don't see anything changing that. I think the partnership that's been built between the NYPD and our federal partners is rock solid. It's not going to change because of a change in administration.
Commissioner, now that it's been 10 days or so from the election, have you had a chance to establish, if there is even one, any sort of trend as far as bias attacks, as far as any sort of whether it be graffiti that you've seen or people's physical actions, other people basically?
I've spoken about this over the last couple of days. There has been a spike year to date in bias attacks, and Chief Boyce will talk a little bit about some of the incidents since the election. But we have the best hate crime investigators in the United States, and New York is a great place, and NYPD and the people of the city will not tolerate that. So if you're going to engage in that activity, you're going to be arrested by the NYPD, and we're going to work with the District Attorney's Office to make sure that you're fully prosecuted under the hate crime statutes.
As the Commissioner said, there has been an uptick in hate crime incidents around the city, not just in one specific area. In particular, since the Election Day, we've had 13 incidents citywide of SWAT stickers, again, across the city, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. There's an ebb and flow to hate crime. that we've seen time to time, national events, sometimes international events, have an uptick in it. So right now, we're experiencing that, nothing we can't handle. The Hate Crime Task Force, as the Commissioner said, is the largest in the country. We do very well in ferreting these things out and bringing these people to justice. So we are looking at it. It is a spike. We're concerned about it. But again, my investigators make arrests on these things all the time.
Just to follow up on that, when you say the spike and national events, are you specifically talking about Donald Trump's rhetoric on the campaign, or just more reporting on these incidents?
Absolutely not. I'm talking about after an election, some things that trigger this. I don't think he has anything to do with these swastikas, to be perfectly honest with you. So that's what we're seeing. Sometimes events happen around the world. So it's hard to put your finger on it right now. The best thing we can do is go out and make arrests and end this thing, which we will. There is an increase in attacks, not violence, but attacks against Muslims, verbiage, so to speak. Again, we make a lot of arrests on those, and we do have a spike this year from last year. It's been up.
Chief Boyce, what should New Yorkers do if they see something? How should they report it?
Well, you call 911 immediately if you see a crime in progress. It's really quite simple. If you know some information, you call the tips line. So either one of those will get to us immediately. Will help my hate crimes task force.
Hold on, just want to add in this. Look, I just want to be crystal clear because we take this uptick in hate crimes very, very seriously. The NYPD is putting substantial resources into finding any individual who commits a hate crime, and there will be prosecution. So for anyone who thinks of acting in a hateful manner, I want them to know there will be very severe consequences. The NYPD is fully committed to that mission.
In the back.
Can you update us on that, the child that was found at the Port Authority? If there was an arrest in that case?
Yeah, Chief Boyce has that.
Yeah. That individual who dropped up that child is Elmer Gomez Ruano. He was placed under arrest at 1 o'clock this afternoon by the Joint Regional Task Force at 164 Clay Street in the 8-4. Not going to tell you how we got him, but we got him. All right, so he's in custody right now. We will put him in for other authorities, and either the Stanford Police or the Port Authority will prosecute from there.
Anything, any updates on the 49th precinct situation?
Which precinct?
Talking about Deputy Inspector Walton. Yeah, he's been modified. We have an internal investigation, and we're working with the Bronx DA's office on that. So, Dean?
I mean, from my understanding, he may be turning himself in, so there could be an arrest in the case. What?
I don't want to go into the investigation. As it unfolds, we'll make sure everybody knows about it.
Jennifer, last up.
I have this question for Boyce. Why do you think...
That's Chief Boyce.
Chief Boyce.
One day, mister, go ahead.
You get no respect.
I'm wondering, you said that you don't think Donald Trump has anything to do with the swastikas, but there's been an uptick since the election. Can you just sort of explain why you...
I can't explain it. That's just the point. It's we have one incident where his name was used on a swastika out of 13. Now, last year at this time, this same week period, about 10 days after the election, we have 13. Last year we had 2. It's difficult to explain. We had them in a school in Manhattan. We had them in a housing development in Brooklyn. So they occur from time to time. So I don't mean to make any kind of connection between the two, other than the fact after the election we're trying to figure it out. But the best thing we can do is make some arrests on it, which we will.
But Jen, I want to state the obvious. Chief is very rightfully saying he doesn't speculate. He waits until his investigation tells him what the motivation is. But I will say, beyond the narrow question of how you look at each case and find the facts, a lot of us are very concerned that a lot of divisive speech was used during the campaign by the president-elect. And we do not yet know what the impact of that will be on our country. So I want to separate very clearly the larger question. We saw that speech. We know how hurtful it was to so many people around the country, and particularly to so many New Yorkers. We know, sadly, that some people get inspired by hateful speech to take action. But that's a different matter than what happened in each and every one of these individual cases that deserves to be investigated and that deserves a factual response.
Okay, we're done with the police questions in a moment. I think this...
We're going to do off-topic. Yep. Round 3. Okay. Other topics. Either way, whatever you all like. Other topics. Yes.
Yesterday you released your budget modification, and highlighted in that was the failure of the pension funds to make the money they were supposed to. 1.5% over the past fiscal year seems pretty low to me. Is this the fault of the city controller?
I'm not going to provide an analysis of the why at this point. I think more needs to be looked at there. I will tell you that from the estimate I have, it's going to be almost $750 million. It's $722 million over the next few years combined. So it's going to be a real negative impact on our budget. But we need to look at that a little more carefully to understand the reasons. Yeah.
Just over the past 2 years, it was, what, 3% or something it made, and then 1.5%. It does correlate with his tenure as controller.
Again, it's not a good situation. It's going to cost the city a lot of money, but I'm not going to speculate on the reasons. We'll let the Office of Management and Budget give you a fuller analysis.
I don't know if you looked at the map, but there were some serious pockets of the city that voted for Donald Trump with very high concentrations. Have you looked at that and noticed any patterns? And are you reaching out to those communities? Because you've been very clear in your support for his opponent, and there are several communities that voted in big numbers for him.
Well, I'd say a couple things. First of all, about 80% of the voters in this city supported Hillary Clinton. So I always like to remember to put the horse before the cart. 4 out of every 5 New Yorkers voted for Hillary Clinton. But in terms of communities that support Donald Trump, they're part of who I represent too. Of course, I'm working with all those communities every single day. We do that on a nonpartisan basis. I think the points I've put out about the concerns that so many New Yorkers feel based on Mr. Trump's statements and proposed policies really touch a clear majority of New Yorkers. There are women who are the majority of this city who are concerned about any effort to take away a woman's right to choose. There are Muslims concerned about a Muslim ban. There are Latinos who are concerned about discriminatory policies because he used terminologies that suggested a sense of negativity about them, and so on and so on and so on. So I will go into each and every neighborhood of this city as part of my job, but I stand by the notion that a lot of New Yorkers are very, very concerned right now.
Just to follow up on that, are there any results of New York City, how New York City voted, that you're looking at for your reelection campaign to learn from?
I think the simple answer is that presidential campaigns and local campaigns are very different things. I am proud of having supported Hillary Clinton and that New Yorkers voted actually in higher numbers. 60,000 more New Yorkers voted in this presidential election than 4 years ago. And I'm very proud of the fact that the city gave her 80% of the votes.
What about voting issues? Because at an earlier press conference, you touched on
Yeah.
that. So what are you thinking about that?
I spoke about it today. I was at the Citizens Union Conference, and I said this is further evidence what happened in New York City during this election, but also all over the country, why we need to continue electoral reform. So this state is absolutely backwards. We have to have early voting. We have to have same-day registration, electronic voter books, all of the things that have been proven to work around the country. We're one of the only states in the country that doesn't have any of those reforms. And we need to pass legislation to empower the executive director of the Board of Elections so that the executive director can actually run it as a modern agency. And finally, I've offered $20 million to the Board of Elections in exchange for a set of reforms and accountability. They still haven't responded. This is going to be a major, major focal point for me because people in this city stood in lines as much as 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and they never had to if we just got it right at the Board of Elections. So we're going to fix that place if Albany will help us.
$5 million to defend yourself and other members of the administration in these investigations and the fundraising and possible favors done. Now, first of all, why is it so much money? And do you think that it's appropriate, to the extent that any of that money covered the state investigations into the campaign actions during the 2014 state Senate campaign, is it appropriate for any of that money?
I will get the lawyers to lay out to you, because I'm not a lawyer, but I can get them to lay out to you how we delineate the different costs, because things that involve campaign, of course, are not covered by the lawyers who work for the government. Their job is to represent people in terms of the work they did as government employees. So that will continue. It's, as you know, there's many elements of investigation. We've been asked to provide information. We've been very, very cooperative. And as many times as the investigators want to talk to different members of the administration, of course, they will have that opportunity, but each time requires preparation and representation. That's why.
There have been allegations that Senator Jeff Sessions, who is, as the United States capped to the Attorney General, has made racially insensitive remarks in the past. Do you have any concerns that his Department of Justice and how they will handle civil rights issues?
Of course, I have concerns, but more so because of some of the policies he's supported. What I hope for is, because he's been a member of the United States Senate, I hope he has a healthy sense of balance and compromise. We don't know this yet. We haven't seen him in a role like this. My hope, and I think this will come out in the confirmation hearings, he's going to be asked tough questions about how he's going to work with cities and states around the country that don't happen to agree with Mr. Trump's vision. That'll tell us a lot about who he is. So I think it's too soon to tell what he would do in that kind of role. But yeah, of course, there's real concerns, first and foremost, about his policy positions. Yeah.
Mayor, you've talked a lot about your sanctuary city policy that the New York has. What would you say to people in America who are undocumented, who don't live in a sanctuary city? I mean, sanctuary means like, it's a safe place. Would you welcome them here? Do you encourage?
No, I think there's been a real misunderstanding of the whole concept of sanctuary city, and I'm certainly going to try and offer people a clearer definition from a New York City point of view. We don't necessarily do things the same way other cities do. I want people to understand what New York City does. We have 500,000 people here who are undocumented. We respect them as our neighbors and fellow residents. We work with people to try and make sure their kids get an education and that they are productive parts of our community. We want them to cooperate with law enforcement. That's a very, very important part of the approach we take. If they see a crime, we want them to report it. If they're a victim of a crime, we want them to come forward. That being said, the law of this city, the more recent law which I signed, delineates dozens and dozens of categories of crime that, if committed by an undocumented individual, will lead us to cooperate with ICE and assist in ICE's process for removing those individuals. Because there's a series of crimes, this was determined between me and the City Council, that if someone commits those crimes, we think it's absolutely appropriate for the actions by ICE to take place. So I think this phrase has been stereotyped in many ways, and I think it's important that each locality define it for itself.
Otherwise law-abiding undocumented people who are, say, in Hempstead or upstate, who feel that they're scared of being deported, would you encourage them to come to New York City?
It's not a matter of encouraging. No. People come from their communities. What I think we have to do is get the federal policies that have been proposed addressed properly. They're not workable, nor are they appropriate policies. They will undermine the work of law enforcement. I guarantee you that. One of the things I said to President-elect Trump is that I urged him to consult with Commissioner O'Neill and police leaders all around the country, and I believed he would hear very consistently that if undocumented people feel that local police forces are in effect deportation forces, that it will actually hurt the work of law enforcement and make it harder to keep our cities safe. So I think people in their own communities will set their own standards, but we have to fix the national policy.
City budget, I'm just curious, are you committing to not raising the property tax rate if you're reelected? And in addition to that, when will you be proposing some sort of, or starting to work on property tax reform, which is something you have expressed interest in?
A couple of things. On the first point, let's talk about the upcoming budget. We will have an announcement on the upcoming budget in the beginning of the year. At this point, there are no plans to increase the property tax rate. I don't see that coming over the horizon, but I can't predict, obviously, everything that's happening in the world around us, but we have no plans at this point. In terms of the future, let's get into next year, and I'll talk about the future. But as you've seen, for 3 years running, we have made a very high priority of not increasing the property tax rate on homeowners. That's something I believe in. I'm a homeowner myself in Brooklyn. I understand the challenges that homeowners face. So none of that is on the horizon, no plan to do so. In terms of the larger reform effort, I've said this at a number of town hall meetings around the city. It's going to be a very, very big undertaking. I have to figure out how and when we begin that process. I suspect it will be a multi-year process because it's so big and so complex and will involve so many stakeholders. but I'll have more to say that in the context of the discussion next year.
To that, not raising the property tax rate, like that was part of your campaign in 2013.
Right.
So you're not committing to.
Anna, be careful, if you will. It is 2016. In 2017, we will be talking about the future of New York City. I'll be happy to address that then. I have no plans. Let's be crystal clear. No plans to increase the property tax rate. And the proof is in the pudding. I've had 3 years of running the city. I have not increased the property tax rate. I have no plans. But I want to address the future when we get into the campaign year.
What advice can you offer undocumented people that are undocumented? What would you advise them to do?
I would advise, I understand a lot of people are fearful. And as I've said, a lot of their family members are fearful who happen to be documented. And this is part of the complexity that needs to be addressed. If this country, for example, most estimates are 11 or 12 million undocumented people, but many of them have documented family members here. So the number of people affected, family members affected, probably goes into the 20 million, 25 million, even more. And that's a lot of people in a nation of 330 million people. I think that people need to understand that we will do everything in our power to protect them and everything in our power to turn back divisive policies and counterproductive policies and discriminatory policies. And New York City will have their back. That's my message.
2 more questions.
2 more questions, yes.
What concerns do you have about former Mayor Rudy Giuliani getting a top job in the Trump administration?
Well, first I can say I can't tell what's going on in terms of him because the situation has changed over the last few days, so I'm not clear what position he's vying for or what his prospects are. But I would say this, when he was mayor, there were times when he was a very divisive figure in this town. If he's going to go into a role of federal leadership, I hope he will leave that in his past. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, on the radio this morning, you said, you were asked about the undocumented issue and ICE funding or sanctuary cities funding. You said the federal government may not have the authority to take away all of our money, all of our funding.
I believe strongly they do not have that authority because of a Supreme Court decision.
But at one point, I think Brandler asked you about what if they took away some money, and you said it would be a hard choice. So if you were given that choice...
We don't deal with theoreticals. Look, I appreciate the question, but what I'm trying to say is we are not going to do things that violate the values of the city and that harm our people. I don't think this is going to play out in a linear fashion. I think that a lot of the proposals the President-elect has put forward are going to cause a lot of distress around this country and a lot of pushback and a lot of debate. So I think we should be very careful. I understand, if you will, the rush to judgment. I understand the feeling that, well, here's a proposal, therefore it will play out in a very linear fashion exactly as it was stated and become a part of our reality. I don't think that's how democracy works. Some of these proposals are quite extreme. It's going to be a lot harder to do them both because of political resistance and because of practical considerations. My point this morning was to say is that we are not going to be compelled to do things that go against the values of New York City. Do a few more now. I got to go. That is a guarantee. Do not stake me out there or you will have nothing to do. Not there. We are not a big, things kind of family. We don't do a whole lot of buying items around the holidays. I would argue the holidays are about other ideas, family and other things. And when we do, for example, Dante loves books. So I will go to Barnes & Noble for Dante, for example. But, we're not going to Gucci. We're not going to Tiffany. Yep. Yeah, David, I have to tell you, I cannot even begin to count the number of people who have come up to me all over the city and expressed their fear, their concern, their desire for some answers, for some understanding of, what a way is forward for this city. And I think it's very important for me to lay out a bigger picture of, one, how we're going to protect our values and our people, two, how we have to play a role as a city that works because we are unified and we are diverse and we respect all people and show that good example to our country. And also I think it's important for people to hear what they can do. to address some of their concerns, what they can do for each other, for their neighbors in this moment of concern. So I'll be laying out a vision of how to do that. Let me take a few more. Go ahead.
To go back to your answer to David's question from before, have you been interviewed by federal authorities at this point?
Excuse me?
Have you been interviewed?
In what sense?
To go back to the investigation.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I thought you meant for the Trump administration. I was going to say that's a non-starter. No. No.
And you said the other day about this that you sleep well at night. You feel you said that many times you've done things appropriately. In that regard, do you feel it's important for the authorities to say well ahead of your reelection that you've been cleared?
I'm not going to tell them how to do their work. I think it's a well-known concept that as you get closer to election year, it's important to give people as many answers as possible. So our job is to be as helpful as possible, as cooperative as possible, provide as much information as possible.
Did it for Governor Cuomo.
Again, I'm not going to speculate further. Rich, let me just do this one.
Mr. Mayor, so you mentioned going to Barnes and Noble. Is that a vote for brick and mortar stores?
Absolutely. I am old school, Rich. I am like proudly old school. I love bookstores and I love, any place where you can go. I love record stores. Now, this is important. I used to go to, when I was in NYU, I went to St. Mark's Sounds, which was like a great, venerable record store on St. Mark's Place. And then everything, of course, moved away from LPs. And what happened in the last few years is that Dante de Blasio would be seen coming into Gracie Mansion with more and more records. And at this point, I don't know if he listens to anything but, traditional records that are all over his room and all. I love this circle of life. So yeah, I like going into a store. I like seeing what's going on and talking to people and looking at different things. So I will go looking for books for Dante at Barnes & Noble.
You don't order from Amazon?
Huh? I'm not an Amazon kind of guy.
What do you want for Christmas?
Peace on earth, Marcia.
Not in his lifetime. Oh, why not,